you here? Hello, meet Tina here. Well, today we are going to be talking about emotional freedom technique for those who are ambitious, rebels, entrepreneurs, or even successful leaders who want to achieve success or enjoy the success, but do not want all those burn out, those baggages. So I've got Angelina Frost here today. Hello, Angelina. Welcome to my show.
Hi,
She is
greetings.
a very powerful life coach, guys. But before I introduce her, she is going to be showing us how to this technique. So stay tuned at the end until the end of this video. And besides that, she is also offering this night free 90 minutes session for you to try out if you like her coaching. And trust me, you're going to be stuck with her for a long time. So let's welcome Angelina Frost. Hey, how are you doing?
Thank you. Hi, Tina. I am doing really well. How are you doing?
Awesome. So, Angelina, tell a little bit about yourself so the listener can know. I know you've been on my show once, but I would like you to, let them know about you, but also let us know what make you think this emotional freedom technique that you're going to be sharing with us is so important.
Okay. So, when I got into my early 30s, I was the primary breadwinner. I'd already for a number of years been enjoying working from home, using a computer. This was in the late 90s and early 2000s. I'm in my very
Wow.
early 30s. And because of the work that I did, I was the main breadwinner, but I also had two little kids. So even though I got to work from home, I was still also being a mommy and a housewife. And my husband, who was not actually making as much as I, was often out of the house for long hours at a time, sometimes with too much work on his plate. And so even though I was at that time married, I was having the experience of being a single working mom.
That's tough.
And it was difficult. And there were a number of years where I was having difficulties with my eldest's father that really, really challenged me. I already had a background of trauma that I had not yet resolved by that time. So this complication in that part of my life just made it that much worse. And eventually my nerves just collapsed. At that time, I had panic disorder. I had been living with anxiety for a good number of years. And I had come to discover that I'd been living with depression for probably about 15 or 16 years by that time.
Wow.
And I'd visited different therapists and counselors and different, naturopaths and homeopathic doctors and stuff like that, because I really needed to do something about how I felt. I didn't feel good, even though there wasn't necessarily anything wrong with me, because physically I was healthy and I was strong, but I was emotionally a mess. And at a certain point, I hit a wall. My brain stopped working. I had to stop my career at that point. My marriage fell apart, and a whole bunch of big, hard changes all came around at once. And one of the good changes that came around at that time is that I bumped into a technique that had only been around for a little while at that time. Not very many people, I'd never heard of it, but I was really compelled by the title, Emotional Freedom Techniques. I was like, yeah, I need myself some of that in a big, big way. And at that time, I was burned out. I had chronic fatigue. Okay. Which just made everything just hard. It felt like I was like slogging my way through life with like a lead blanket on me, while I was like slogging through Jello and had like alligators grabbing onto my pants, right? Like
Wow.
it was just, everything was work. And so I learned this tool in an afternoon, in really probably just a couple of hours. And during that couple of hours, I literally felt like my life had changed. It didn't cure my depression or my anxiety all at once, but what it did give me the ability to, the very first time I used it, because I was perpetually anxious. which was a big part of my burnout. I didn't realize at that time that an unchecked mental universe can cause an out of control internal emotional universe, which can exhaust you and yield depression.
Right.
Right. And so I didn't know about all of those connections. All I knew is that I was miserable and I didn't have any reason to be, which made it that much harder to feel so bad because I really didn't have a reason to be miserable. My life was fine on the surface. Everything was the way it was supposed to be until everything fell apart. And even when it fell apart, it was still fine. It wasn't like catastrophe, but I was just the big changes in my life and my work. None of that actually made me feel better. So I learned EFT, and the first thing that I noticed is that it gave me the ability to change my triggered state in any given moment. That first day I went into that training anxious because I went everywhere anxious, right?
Right.
And through the course of that couple of hours, I noticed that when we were done, maybe with just the first or second tapping section, I didn't have any sense of anxiousness inside my sensory awareness for like the first time in years. Okay.
Amazing.
It's so amazing. And so that training happened during a weekend. I went away on a retreat, and that was the most valuable tool. It's the only thing I remember from that weekend, actually.
Wow.
And I took that tool to heart and I used it the way that my teacher suggested it. He said, use it on anything. And he said, and it's definitely it's a great idea to use it every time you get triggered. And so that's what I did. And so there was a period from the year 2000, it was the summer of 2000 when I learned that tool. Throughout the rest of that year and well into the early mid 2000s, there was a period of time where I was tapping every day, multiple times a day, sometimes because I felt like I was highly volatile. The thing that I noticed is that when I would get triggered, as time passed, when I would get triggered, first of all, it would take a lot longer for something to trigger me. And the next thing I noticed was that my triggers weren't as strong and forceful as they had used to be, which made it so that I had the ability to be more steady for longer, right? So after I'd been tapping for a couple of years, I had a girlfriend who was struggling with back pain. And I said, hey, my teacher told me that you can use it on anything. I had, by the way, also been living with back pain for a really long time, but it had already gone away, not as a result of me tapping about it.
So it's not just your emotion, your physical. Oh,
no,
amazing.
Not at all. No, not at all. It's actually, so what, I want to kind of pick this piece up, but I want to tell my story about my girlfriend. I'm just going to write it down so I don't forget the connection between emotions and pain.
Right.
Okay.
Well, that kind of makes sense because it's kind of remind me, that when you tap into those places, you probably tap into the trigger points or the pressure point.
Yes.
Which release the pain.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And when I'm showing you, we will talk a little bit more about the meridians and the acupressure points.
That's so amazing.
That are utilized in this practice. So my girlfriend was talking about having back pain. I said, hey, let's try some EFT on it, maybe, and so we did a few rounds and she noticed an immediate, like within a couple few rounds, she noticed that her pain went from being like an 8 or a 9 to being more like a 2 or a 3. She could still feel it there, but it dramatically decreased her sensory awareness of her pain. And while I was having this conversation with her, I told her a little bit about where I was when I first started using EFT. And when I first started using that tool, I had panic attacks fairly regularly, and they were the kind that were debilitating. They were the kind that made me want to die.
Wow.
Okay? I really, like, every time it happened, I really wished for death because it was so scary and so hard. It would paralyze me. My hands would get paralyzed in this weird position and I couldn't move. It was really bad. And as I was telling her about where I was when I first started using EFT, I said, I used to have panic attacks. And then in that moment, I realized I couldn't even remember the last time I had a panic attack or even thought about a panic attack. And that was the moment. Like I said, I'd
Huge.
been huge, because
Yeah.
it by no means was I feeling like, oh, I'm all like well now, I'm healed from my trauma or anything like that, because I knew that I was like now on a journey, right?
Mm-hmm.
But though the fact that the panic had gone away, I wasn't really being driven by anxiety anymore, and I didn't have to pray to get out of bed every single morning. Somewhere along the way, those ways of living my life had fallen away, even though I never tapped about my depression per se, or even about my anxiety. I tapped every time I got
Wow.
triggered. Yeah. So this stuff works, and there's a lot of science behind it now. Um, neurophysicist Bruce Lipton talks a lot about emotional freedom techniques.
He's well known. Yes. Yes.
Uh-huh. And
Wow.
he's got a lot to say about EFT. He's always been a huge proponent for the practice. And since then, it was the early 2000s when I bumped into it. Since then, it has become way more widespread in a global sort of way. And actual conventional practitioners, both in the medical and in the mental health sectors, are embracing this tool more and more because it's so effective, right?
Wow. It has saved your life. It
It
has
has
saved
saved
you
my
big
life.
time. Big time.
Yes, it
Yeah.
has. Like, I actually feel like it's given me some sort of longevity too, because now I'm in my mid 50s and people don't actually believe me when I tell them that I don't have any joint pain. I don't have any pain in my body at all. I'm still just doing all kinds of things like climbing trees and just being the kind of,
Amazing. You feel like a kid again.
well, I mean, I never stopped, it's like I felt like an old person when I was in my early 30s. I felt much older than I have since, right?
Wow.
Now I just feel like myself consistently, and it's been like this for a number of years. And it doesn't mean that I don't get bogged down in hard feelings, and it doesn't mean that I don't get stuck, because I absolutely do. But this is the reason that I work with other people. I
Yes.
work with coaches, I work with, I want to work with you
Well,
because I want
tell
to.
us about your coaching work.
Okay, well, I have EFT is one of the tools in my big toolkit. It was the first tool that I was able to get immediate results with. But it isn't the only tool. I've been practicing meditation since 1988. I've got and spent 4.5 years at the Berkeley Psychic Institute, where I learned how to hone my natural inborn abilities, which all of us have, which are our more sublime, our empathetic nature, our clairvoyance and our clairaudience. All of these are abilities that are not supernatural, by the
Right.
way. They're very, very natural to all
They're very
human beings.
common among us.
Yeah, and they're natural to us. And so I
Yes.
learned how to have a relationship with those. Then I spent 4.5 years studying A Course in Miracles, and now it's just a part of, like, it's always in my library, it's always at my fingertips, because sometimes I just need to open it
I
and
have always been intrigued by that.
Mhm. and
Wow.
then the work of Byron Katie is work that I also pull into the work that I do with people. The work of Louise Hay, all of these are in my old wheelhouse prior to learning emotional freedom techniques. Since emotional freedom techniques, I have gone deeply into purpose work and have facilitated groups that are specific to unearthing and discovering and developing a conscious relationship with that force that we refer to as purpose, and helping people to anchor into what that is for themselves through inquiry. And then the coaching is like the more recent of my wheelhouse. I've been coaching since 2009,
Wow.
and I bring, as a coach and as somebody who's just like into being well, I feel like I'm in a continuous process of learning. So I'm always, my current more like my more recent mentors include Brene Brown, Jim Quick, James Clear, um, and the like, because they also are doing work in the same realm, but from different angles. And they've got data to support things that I have discovered on my own just as the result of practicing EFT and all of my other, self-awareness isn't necessarily what I'm talking about, although it does include that, but it's just what I'm talking about is being well, right? Self-awareness is a part of being well. Because if you aren't aware of yourself, then how can you attend to yourself in order to maintain or cultivate wellness?
Exactly. I totally agree with that. Yes, I totally agree with that. Oh, wow, that's powerful. And your specialty, you have you specialize in business entrepreneurs, right?
I like to work with entrepreneurs and leaders because they're dynamic people who, when they take something up, they often will get really behind it. So I am not a good coach for somebody who really just wants somebody to listen to them go over and over and affirm their stuckness. I can't I am about results. So I actually don't work with my clients for a very long time. I think we maybe mentioned this in the last interview. 6 months is a pretty quick, usually it's young people, between the ages of 18 and 30 can move fairly quickly because they grab onto the tools really quickly and they use them, and they don't have a whole bunch of backstory built up behind them. So they don't have necessarily as much to
a lot of baggages.
Right. They have a little bit less baggage. They're also, just they still have a lot of life force energy in them. So that also kind of gets behind their healing efforts. And so they can go fairly quickly. Those of us, those that are in my layer or older can take a little bit longer, and not necessarily the case, but I haven't ever worked with anybody for longer than 18 months. My goal is your graduation.
Nice, right? Nice. And quickly, guys, listening to Angelina Frost right now, if you feel connected with her, no one offer a free 90 minutes. Try me out. You got to take advantage of this. So I'm going to put her link under description. So take advantage of that, guys.
You can just go to angelinafrost.com.
There you go.
That page right there. It will also show you a little bit about what to watch for if you decide that you want to select a coach or you want to try coaching, because there are a lot of coaches out there, and there are a lot of people out there who are calling themselves coaches who haven't actually been trained to coach, or if they have, they went through a 6-week or an 8-week program. I was in my coaching program for 2 years before I graduated, and I started my own coaching program in my town, where I, just as a pilot program, I coached 30 of my community members in 3 separate groups of 10. So there was a year during the last year of my training where I was actually delivering the material, teaching it for 18 hours a week, every week for a year. I put my good friends and coaching students through a year long. So that's how so I know my stuff. I've been deeply immersed in it. I use it to serve myself and keep and maintain my own well-being through actually really intense times too. Because just in this most recent decade, 2013, I have had the experience of my partner passing in 2017. Before that, my sister's husband committed suicide.
Oh, wow. Sorry to hear that. Yeah.
And before that, my husband and my partner and I had sacrificed a project and a company in order to take care of my family when they were going through hard times.
Oh, wow.
So this is a time for me personally right now in my life of recovery. I am currently in recovery from the past decade. And what has made it possible for me to have the resilience that I've had through this and not be completely destroyed by a number of tragedies in a row, right? Kind of all back to back. It took me up until last year to actually even start to reflect on the stuff that had happened earlier in the decade, because so much had happened that was so much bigger, right? Wow. It was just boom, 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 boom. So I know that if I didn't have my practices under my belt, that the past decade would have probably taken me out.
Do you feel that because the EFT technique, that also has helped you going through this difficult time?
Absolutely. So what EFT taught me is about the very intricate connection between how we think, what we think, and how we feel, and the intricate connection between how our feelings are doing and our own physical well-being, right? We
Wow.
cannot separate these things, but somehow, even though we all have a mind and we all have feelings and we've all got bodies, we've never actually been shown to how to have dominion over these sublime relationships that are going on inside of ourselves all day long, every day. So work I do is I show people how to come into awareness of these sublime relationships and then take ownership of them. Really,
Beautiful.
right?
Beautiful. So, Angelina, I noticed that the coaching industry has been growing a lot, especially, wow, I have to say, because I heard about it a while back ago, many years ago, but now it's more and more. A lot of people are utilizing this coaching service. Can you tell me, like, with your observation, what do you suggest the listener to do in order to navigate this, using the coaching services like coming to you?
So take a look at my website. I actually pulled out some data about this industry specifically and how much it's grown in the past in the past decade. It's gone from almost nothing to just like exploding. And you'll see
Wow.
that there are a lot of coaching institutes, there are a lot of coaching programs. And there are, like I said, there are a lot of people out there who are saying that what they're doing is coaching because it's become it's kind of like this uncharted territory, and it's not fully regulated, at least in the state of California. And when I say regulated, I don't even know if it needs to be, because you can't hurt somebody coaching, but
Right.
you can coach very ineffectively and end up costing somebody like a lot of time and money, which is unfortunate, especially if you yourself aren't in your own practice of self-care and well-being. It's
Right.
hugely important for any healer, whether you're a coach or whether you're a physical therapist. It's super important for us to understand that this self that desires to serve the world in a healing way, in a leadership way, this self needs to be the first self at the top of your list, because this is the self that you are requiring to be in service.
True.
So if you want to be in service in a truly effective way, this self is the first self, not the second self, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of upside down in our culture, because we've learned that if you're take care of yourself, which is something we're all naturally born knowing how to do, by the way.
Right.
But we've learned this concept of selfish. That means you're selfish if you take care of yourself first, which to me is a curse. And it's it's the thing that flips us and sort of makes us think that that person's feelings over there are more important than our own. This, by the way, is the foundation for codependence, right? And codependence is a thing that makes us start to feel like a wobble. It's the thing that predisposes us to burnout or addiction, anxiety, depression. All of them have to
It's
do
not
with,
healthy at all.
it is
Codependent
not.
relationship,
No, it's
not at all.
it's very destructive. And in fact,
Yes,
it was my
yes.
own codependence that drove my decision making, that that ended up running my partners and my lives into the ground, because I couldn't stop putting my family's crises over our lives. And I did that. And so, thank God I know the importance and power of forgiveness. Thank God I know emotional freedom techniques, because I've had to bump into some really hard truths about myself and choices that I made. Certainly, they were choices that I made under duress, but there's still choices that ended up really driving our lives into the ground, like really ultimately hurting us, because I made them more important than us.
See, what makes you a great coach, Angelina, is your own personal experience through many traumas that you mentioned, many years of that under your belt, even though it was kind of difficult at the time. But all the wisdom that you gain to help your clients is not from the books, it's from actual real experience. And that's more profound than anything else that I have to say.
It's
So are
true.
you ready to?
It's actually the material for a bunch of books, because
Yes,
that's what I'm working on
exactly.
right now. Yes.
Exactly. Wow. You gonna write a book?
I have written several, and there are several in the works. Yeah. I haven't taken the leaps
Awesome.
into getting them fully published yet, but that's coming this year, and
Oh,
it's
you're
really
gonna have to get
exciting.
it published and we're gonna be on here again. So Angelina, are you ready to show us how to? Because I know listener could be like, okay, I want to know how, right?
Yes, 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 yes. Are you
Let's do
ready?
it.
This
Let's
is
do
the
it.
best. Okay,
Yeah.
great. So it's helpful if you decide that you want to take this up and practice it with us. We're going to give you 30 seconds to maybe grab a pen and paper so that you can write little notes for yourself. As you're tapping, you might notice a picture flashes up on you, or something that catches your attention. Pay close attention to these things. Our bodies have many different ways of communicating with us. Don't dismiss anything that pops to mind, or any sensations that come to the surface while you're tapping, because they're there, they're important. Also have a glass of water. Get yourself into a comfortable position.
Right. Got it.
And speaking of water, I see it. I'm going to go grab mine. One
Please
second.
do. Please do. And in the meantime, guys, while Angelina is getting her glass of water, you should go and get a glass of water too if you don't have one right now. And you know what? Remember, you can go to her website. It's angelinafrost.com. I will also list all her bio information, her web address, and the link to her 90 minutes free session, coaching session. So just go there when you get a chance. But let's begin when she finished drinking, which is soon. And be ready. This is going to be fun and you're going to feel the difference. All right. Hello. Welcome back, Angelina.
Hi.
You got your water?
Yes, I do. Yes,
Awesome. Me too. Water's good for you.
Salute. Yeah. It's huge. Water is huge.
Huge.
And that book that I mentioned that you'll get a free copy of if you come over and take advantage of a free coaching session. And I promise it's not a sell, right? I give you a full-on coaching session.
Wow.
And no matter what, you're going to come out of it with a different perspective on things, a lot of value, and some more space inside yourself, no matter what. That's like 100%.
So besides the 90 minutes free session with you one-on-one, you also get this free downloads of the coaching session.
Of the book.
Of the book.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. This is
Yeah.
this is amazing. She's giving freebies. All these guys take advantage of that. And thank you for doing that, Angelina.
Yeah, my
really
pleasure.
appreciate that kindness that you're offering.
You know, my vision, and I'm going to throw this in here real quick. My vision is, and my mission, because I know that this is true, is that the more of us that take up the important work of learning how to have a loving relationship, a healing relationship with ourselves, this is how we recreate our world. The more of us that are healing, that are about the important business of healing, then the more of us heal. We are our world.
I totally agree with this. And I think this is one of the reasons why I'm doing this YouTube too, Angelina, is connect to someone like you, healers, people who do things that help other people out. It doesn't matter what aspect of their life will be, body, mind, finance, whatever, that we all have this gift and wisdom that we do for a living, that we can actually honestly truly help other people to be better.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter if you're like a computer programmer, or if you're a physicist, or if you're a builder. Like what you are, what you bring, what you love, your gift, it matters. All of the puzzle pieces matter. All of them matter. We are what make this beautiful puzzle of humanity whole. But it's only when we are in our wholeness that we can participate in that. So this is in service to that.
Beautiful, it said. Beautiful. Just my heart just like, ooh, the puzzle. You're right about that. Just absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
I love that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. I so appreciate you, Tina.
No, likewise. It's just beautiful though, to have a discussion with someone like you who's so wise. And then every word you said, it's just like, wow, aha moment. You know, this is like amazing. And to truly connect it with each individual like you, it's a blessing. It's a real
So
blessing. So
we're
I want to thank
holding
you too.
we're holding hands.
Yes, totally. And we're sharing this beautiful blessing and healing with everyone who's watching this show. Or even go to her oh God, I totally forgot. She has a podcast. And
Oh,
tell
on the
tell us,
wisdom.
we forgot about quickly before we get started.
Okay,
Yeah.
so if you haven't yet heard about the Wisdom app, it is a place where mentors like Tina and I show up, and we just show up and throw down. That's it. There are a lot of other mentors on there. Some people who are just for the first time ever, just bringing to the world their thing that they've been thinking about, learning about for years. And it's very diverse. Everybody, like Tina was saying, we're all completely unique in the gift that we have to bring. And not everybody is going to receive the gift that I have to share, but might receive a very similar or same message from Tina or from one of my other fellow mentors in wisdom. And so there's this whole huge platform filled with people who have wisdom, who are just showing up and sharing it. And it's called the Wisdom Audio app. It's sort of like talking on a phone call, or listening. If you're not hosting a room, then it's like listening to two people have a very intimate.
It's like listen to
awesome.
the radio talk show, all day long.
Exactly.
It's a different topic, very fascinating.
Yep.
Amazing. When you
It
drive the
is.
car long distance, go to work, is an excellent place to just turn it on and listen.
Yep. So you can get the app. They have it on Mac and Android now, and you can go to it through your browser by entering joinwisdom.audio, or you
Yeah.
can just search the app in your app store.
Download it. Yeah, instead of listening to all this like news medias, which is like so negative, guys, listen to the Wisdom app on my YouTube.
Word. That is a part of well-being.
You give yourself suggestion with the positive, wisdoms and suggestion from every speakers. That's better to listen and put in your subconscious when you're hypnotically driving. That's very important because you can be easily hypnotized into a negative suggestion with the billboard and everything. Just tune in and listen to something that's actually positive to you. So download that Wisdom app on your app store. All right, so let's begin, Angelina.
Thank you.
I'm excited.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that the camera's right. Maybe I need to push back from the camera a little bit so you can get it. Because there are points that we use on the body coming to here. We use points on the head and on the hand. So I think you can see me pretty well. I can move.
Yes.
So the way it starts, emotional freedom techniques, you start by, first of all, it's helpful if you're triggered because then you can see,
you can tell
how rapidly it can change it. And I don't want anybody to be triggered. Being triggered sucks. But if you are, or if you can think of something that's kind of under your skin right now, it's helpful, because that under your skin sensation where that neighbor is being a jerk, or that kid or spouse is right, it's nice if you can just kind of tune into whatever angsty feeling you might have awareness of, or if you have some physical pain, tune into it. Just notice, maybe you've got a little bit of low back pain, or maybe you've got something going on in your neck, or your elbow or whatever. So tune into it, tune into something, some place where your system is showing you that there's disharmony, right? We have these internal sensations, even if it's physical pain. There are systems' way of showing us, and this is something that EFT showed me, is that it's our system's way of showing us where love isn't. Okay, so what are we doing? We are allowing the hard feelings to move by using this tool, so that they don't stay stuck in our body and then cause us pain or even disease. And I'll talk more about that right at the end. And so the way you start out is there is a point in EFT where you have, what, I'm also going to send you the PDF, and maybe you can give a link to the PDF for the EFT book.
I will do that. Yes, please. I'll do that.
That's not my book. It's a book that was written by EFT. Okay. And it tells you like the history of the tool, and it tells you about why they think it works and all this other stuff. So if you want, you can also just come back and watch this video, and it will also help.
It's awesome. You get 90 minutes free coaching, you get free book, and you get this EFT. God, this is amazing. Blessing session here.
I am blessed. Okay, so the beginning of an EFT session, there is one point that is about halfway between the nipple and the collarbone. It's right here, and about halfway between the sternum and your side. So it's kind of right in the middle. EFT refers to that as the sore spot, and this is the only point that you rub, and you just rub it gently, and you'll feel around there. You might notice that there's actually some tenderness somewhere, you know, maybe closer to the armpit, maybe closer to the sternum. It's a little bit different on everyone else, but that startup point. And then each of the points has an affirmation, an auto suggestion that goes with each point. And this one is, even though I've got this pain, or I feel this icky way, whatever it is, fill in the blank, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. And you say this statement 3 times. Even though I have this hard feeling, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. Even though there's that hard feeling or that icky feeling, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. And take a moment to really pause and let yourself hear the words that you're saying to yourself. What do those words mean? Even though this thing is wrong, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. What does it mean? I'm not asking you to answer it. I just want you to reach for what it means. What does that mean? And so this is the point where we neutralize any unconscious opposition to helping the blocked energy move. And then we go on to the next point. I have to take off my glasses for this one. So the first point, I'm going to get right here. It's on either side. It's right at the inside of your eyebrows. You can use either side. You can tap with either hand, and you just want to tap lightly. You don't want to leave a bruise, but you also want to have an impact. Maybe you'll hear it go thump, 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 thump. This point, the auto suggestion is, I release all of the emotional trauma associated with that icky feeling. I release all of the emotional trauma associated with that icky feeling. And you might notice some sensations of kind of queasiness or ickiness surface in your sensory awareness. That's your system's way of letting you know that it's hearing your suggestion, and it understands that it's safe to let those icky sensations pass. So I can hang out on a point for 15 or 20 minutes sometimes, but for the purposes of making this flow for our audience, I'm going to keep it going. The next point is, if you follow this curve right there at the apex of that curve, kind of at the corner of your eye, but it's on the bone there. I release all of the fear from all the roots, causes, and effects of that icky feeling, that unpleasant sensation, that ache, that anger, whatever it is. I release all of the fear from all the roots, causes, and effects of that icky sensation. Next point is kind of closer to the nose than one might think. It's right underneath your pupil, and it's right on your cheekbone, right here. Here, I release all of the anger and grief from all the roots, causes, and effects of that hard feeling. I release all of the anger And notice the sensations that light up in your sensory awareness. You might notice an ache in your chest. You might notice a heat. All there is to do is sense and tap. We're stimulating every meridian. As we go through one complete tapping session, we're stimulating every meridian in the human body. Next point, and this is a good one. So you know how we've all got this habit of judgment? You know what judgment yields? Judgment yields resentment, regret, and remorse.
Ew, that's ugly.
Also, it is. And it also, in a sensory way, it just yields weight. So it is its own mental habit. So this point is actually helping to break up the mental habit of judgment.
Mm.
You know, we might find it very justifiable to judge that guy that just cut us off, or our spouse, or our sibling, or our parent or child. We might find it justifiable. Their behavior was deplorable, right? We've got this story going on, but the thing is that we don't realize is that we saddle ourselves with the weight of that judgment. It never yields internal freedom, never, whether we're judging outwardly or whether we're judging inwardly, and we do both.
I agree.
So here, I release all of the judgment, the resentment, the regret, the remorse, from all the roots, causes, and effects of that icky feeling, of that pain. And you'll notice that it kind of goes in progression. And I didn't notice this until years after I'd been practicing, right? Then the next thing, after our mind judges, guess what happens? We feel shame.
Mm.
And then we go into hiding when we feel shame. So here, I release all the shame, any shame.
Wow.
From the roots, causes, and effects of that icky feeling, of that pressure, that tension, that ache. And allow the system to show you all the different ways. You'll notice sensations light up all over on the inside. And that's your body's way of letting go of stuck emotional energy. That's what those sensations are. Sometimes you might even notice an intensification of the pain that you might be addressing, and then boom, it just disappears. That
Wow.
intensification is your system's way of saying that it's almost out, right? So this is a message to say, don't be afraid of your pain. Your pain is a gift 100% of the time. And this tool makes it a lot easier to interact with the messenger of pain in a constructive way so that you can get the benefit from it, right? There is always a benefit to receive from the messenger of pain if you know how to receive its message, right?
Beautiful.
The message is always release.
Awesome.
Okay, so moving on. So here, you'll notice we got a collarbone coming down here. We've got these two little knobs right here. If you go just to the outside and just below either one of those knobs, you'll feel like a kind of like a hollow, like a little hollow right there. And this point, we are tapping about the habit. Oops, sorry, this is messing around with my mic right now. I can tell too. Let me see if I can get this out of my way. There we go. That's neat. Okay, so this point right here, we're tapping, and this is where we release blame. And you'll notice that once we judge and then feel ashamed, quickly we will go into blaming. Who's to blame? Whose fault is this that I'm having this hard time? And the thing about the habit of blame is that we learned it a long time ago. Doesn't mean that you got a problem. We all learned it. It's part of what Brene Brown says is a way to express anger. The thing about blame is that it relegates you into a position of victimhood. As soon as it's their fault that you are feeling, then you have given them your power.
Power. Mm-hmm.
Right? You have given them power over your feelings. You've basically given them power over your life, because guess what? Your feelings are where your life happens. That's where we experience our lives, are in our feelings. So if we are blaming them for our hard feelings, then we're robbing ourselves of the ability to do anything about our own hard feelings. And the truth is, nobody can do anything for us about our hard feelings except for us. It's not incumbent on the world to change so that we can feel good.
True.
Right? So here, releasing the pattern, the habit of blame. Now, the interesting thing about blame, I release all the blame from all the roots, causes, and effects. It's the same auto-suggestion, pretty much. You're just changing the flavor of emotion. The interesting thing about blame is that not only do we blame outwardly, but we also get blamed. And then if we stop blaming outwardly, we think that blaming inwardly is the solution, and it's not. Blame pointed in any direction, even if it's inward from yourself toward yourself, that isn't responsibility, that isn't accountability. You're still just being a victim, but now you're being a victim to yourself. Right? Blame is the habit that we all learned that puts us into a position, a stuck position of victimhood in our lives. Blame 100% of the time leads us to that. So there's a way that we can disrupt that mental pattern, habit of blame.
Beautiful.
Okay. And then
just when you flip the headphone, I lose your sound just a little bit, so you can put your headphone a little bit
back.
Yeah,
Okay,
there you go.
now I put it back. Yeah, sorry about
now,
that.
Now it's better. Yes.
Right.
I can still hear you.
Yeah. I didn't want it to be tapping into it. Okay, you could hear that okay though?
Oh yeah, now it's good.
Okay. No, but before, could you hear it?
I can still hear you. I can still, listener can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ugh. Sorry about that, everybody.
That's
okay. So next point. This is an interesting point because you use all of your fingertips kind of in a little fan like this. Mm-hmm. And it's halfway between the front and the back, right at breast level. For women, it might be where the wire, the breast or the edge of your bra is, right? And this, I'm going to stand up here a little bit. Okay.
Gotcha.
Halfway between the front and the back. And this point, I release all of the guilt from all of the roots, causes, and effects of whatever that icky thing is, that feeling, that pain, whatever it is. I release all of the guilt from all of the roots, causes, and effects. And you heard me allude to this last time. I mean, a little while ago. Sometimes I can hang out for a long time on a point. And when I notice that I've kind of zoned out and I'm just like tapping forever on blame, I realize like, oh, I've been here for like 5 or 10 minutes tapping on blame. I've been stuck in blaming, right?
Wow.
Or I've been stuck in guilt. So it's interesting the way that the body shows us and can teach us about what our mental patterns are, right? Guilt isn't anything, like guilt is never constructive. It also is a habit, and
it's
of course,
huge for many people too.
And especially if we are blaming. You see judgment, blame, guilt. They're connected. They have their own internal relationship that create these unconscious structures inside of us. And that's where our wires get crossed. And that's where we start to feel depleted in our energies, where we start to feel anxious. Judgment. Like if you're always judging yourself or somebody else, how can you expect to ever feel anything but anxious?
True.
Right? Yeah. Because an internal environment that is made out of judgment isn't a safe environment. And if there's no safeness, then what do we feel when we don't feel safe? We feel anxious. Right?
True. Totally true.
Okay. So that's the guilt point. Next point, and we're in the home stretch here. Next point is right underneath the breast, in the same
Okay.
line with that first point, the startup point, but down below now, just below the breast, and tapping that point, I release all other limiting beliefs and feelings, disappointment, greed, lust, envy, whatever. Like whatever might be on the surface, it doesn't really matter. And you don't necessarily have to name them.
Mhm.
I release all other limiting beliefs and emotions from this pain I have in my back or my elbow or my neck, or this ache I have in my heart, right? And then we go to the hand. The rest of the points are on the hand. The first point, now, when I first learned EFT, this point wasn't a part of it. When I went to my teacher's training 8 years after I learned the tool, I went to learn how to be a teacher of EFT, which was ironic because I'd already been practicing for 8 years.
It's
So
beautiful
I
though.
could have actually taught the course and would have taught it differently. But that's how I got my teacher paper, whatever. So this point right here is where, and I didn't learn this in EFT training either. I learned this as the result of practicing EFT. But here you can invoke the vibrational frequency of forgiveness. Now it's at the base of your thumb, right up against that center line.
Yeah, got it.
And what I say is, I invoke forgiveness
Beautiful.
and allow, and this is calling in the vibrational frequency or love. You can say love, but forgiveness is really powerful. A Course in Miracles says that forgiveness is the great solvent. Energetically speaking, it is the vibrational frequency that solves all disharmony. It brings resolution or solution, right? So I lean on that one just because of my background, but it can be anything that feels better than what you just released. It
Right.
could be golden sunlight. It could be a color, any other color. It could be like spring air after a rain. Like you can pull the vibrational frequency of literally anything that you can imagine in to replace that which you released, because you
Wow.
don't want to leave a vacuum. It'll fill in with something. You might as well have some intention behind what you let it fill in with. So there's that. Next point is at the base of every fingernail. All the rest of them are going to be at the base of every fingernail on the side that is closest to your heart. If you put your hand in front of yourself like this, it's that side of the finger at the base of the cuticle. And this point, so here is how I do it too. I grab onto it like this and I tap like that. And that makes it not wiggle around. So here
I got my technique down.
Oh, there you got it. Nice. Yes. Beautiful. So this one is, I invoke mutual forgiveness between myself and all. Source, God, universe, whatever. In the invocation, the allowing for mutual forgiveness to pass between these two. Now, my understanding is that I've already been granted forgiveness, so I don't have to worry about whether or not it's forthcoming. But if I've got a grudge against God, this is the part where you release that.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I agree with that totally.
It happens. We have our experiences and we can think that it's God's fault and we blame God for man's misgivings or shortcomings.
Yeah, we get upset.
For man's errors, not God's.
Yeah.
Right? God can't do anything. Like, we live in a free will universe, right?
That's so true.
Its hands are tied as far as what we do.
That's the blame thing, right? Gotta do a lot of this. We blame on God. You gotta do a lot.
Blame is here. This one's blame.
There you go. Yep.
So next point, similarly, at the base of the cuticle on the side of the finger,
got it,
pointer finger, I invoke mutual forgiveness between myself and myself. So this is the undoing of any private or not so private judges that we might be holding against ourselves.
Beautiful.
Same position, next finger,
Mhm.
the middle finger.
Mhm.
This is where we invoke mutual forgiveness between ourselves and our parents,
Mm.
our mother and our father. Because often these tangles, we will find they have their roots in the relationships that we learn to have with our parents. And our parents are casualties to all of the same learning that we ourselves are trying to recover from now. But we
True.
can and have learned socially to blame our parents for our pain. And doing that just keeps us in pain, right?
Yeah,
So
I agree.
we allow mutual forgiveness to occur because they're in pain for the same reasons we're in pain. They learned it,
I agree.
right?
Probably worse.
Yeah, it probably was worse.
Worse.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because they don't have the awareness that we do.
Exactly. I feel like every generation tries to filter back as much as it can of the
Mhm.
junk that has been passing down through the generations. We are awakening is occurring.
Yeah,
One way or the other, it's happening, and we can
huge.
see indications of it, right? So on the ring finger, we switch sides. This is the only finger that we switch sides on, but it's the same position at the base of the cuticle, but on the other side. And
Okay.
in this one, I invoke mutual forgiveness between myself and my romantic partnerships.
So it goes a lot of relationship issues here out there on the dating side. These fingers.
Right?
Keep tapping.
And I always encourage going back to the first heartbreak and making
Mm.
sure that that first heartbreak gets mutual forgiveness going on in that space, because that first heartbreak can be the stuff that informs all of our other relationships, where we go into patterns of trying to protect ourselves from that ever happening again, but in so doing we keep ourselves isolated and blocked off from the love that we think we're trying to have or give,
Oh
right?
God, yeah.
Yeah. So that's that one. Now going back to the original side for the pinky,
Mm-hmm.
also again at the base of the cuticle, this is where we invoke mutual forgiveness between ourselves and our friends and families.
Mm.
And here's the thing about forgiveness. A lot of people kind of think that the idea of forgiveness is, it means that you have to be friends with somebody who really is
Hurt
not safe,
you.
hurt you, who is not
Mm-hmm.
safe for you to have in your life. And that is not what forgiveness
It's
is.
true.
That's not what it means. Forgiveness is basically the universe's way of giving us a way to disconnect or energetically disconnect ourselves from that which has caused us pain,
It's a
right?
trickling, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And in some cases, like, like say in the case of our parents, this is kind of important because unless our parents are still in very, very toxic ways of living and they really, really can't be in our lives because of their life choices, but there can still be forgiveness there. And then there are the parents, like in my case, even though there was a lot of hurt in the background, but that my parents, as the young people that they were, they hurt us in a lot of ways without realizing, just in neglectful ways, right? But they themselves have grown a lot. That was a long time ago, right? And so this makes it possible for me to have a current day relationship, even though there was a bunch
Mm-hmm.
of mess up back there that
Right.
really left me bent out of shape. Even though I'm still straightening myself out, I can still have the grace. I can still receive that grace. And if I can receive it, then I absolutely can give it. Absolutely. And it's not even like I can, like I'm the one that's giving the grace. I'm the one that's receiving the grace.
Nice.
Grace, forgiveness.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And
Beautiful.
then this is the last point right here. So this is the karate chop point. Again, you use all the fanned out fingers. And this is where I invoke my highest nature, my truest self, to come in and occupy those places where I released all of those stuck energies.
Mm-hmm. It's beautiful.
And that's it. This is called the basic recipe according to emotional freedom techniques. And then there is another part that we can do another time. that is called the Nine Gamut. And the Nine Gamut is like the big guns of EFT. You can change your state right away with the basic recipe, what you just learned. The big guns you can pull out when you know that you've bumped into a pocket of unresolved or unreleased trauma.
Wow.
And
Wow. So
yeah,
this is not it. There is more.
there is one more piece. There is one more piece to it, but I didn't realize it was going to take us as long.
It's okay. We're gonna get you back again because she's not done here. Angelina Frost has a lot to share, so I'm gonna get her back to do that big gun EFT because I'm sure everyone is interested in releasing all these traumas and all this stuff. Emotional pain, the physical pain, you name it. She got all these tools to help you guys.
What I really,
Angelina, it's amazing. I
thank
can
you.
feel the difference. Actually, I did feel like some the pain on my shoulder. But then now after the session, I just feel kind of like, oh, it's loosened up. There was one point I forgot what it was. I kind of feel it, the sensation too. So you were right about that because I'm very in tune with my physical body, so I can
Yeah.
feel all that.
Yep. Yeah.
So
I
wow.
love this tool as a framework, right? And what I really, with my final wrap up message for this interview, I really want for people to know that anxiety and depression and burnout are remediable, and it takes work, but you have everything that you need inside of you to bring your own self back to a place of wellness. Wellness is your birthright. It's your natural state of being. And if you're watching this and you don't have burnout or depression or anxiety, but you just want support in making sure that you don't fall into those patterns, I'll tell you what, it's a lot easier to prevent those states than it is to recover from them. But that recovering from them is absolutely possible. Absolutely.
Yeah. I agree with that. Wow, Angelina, powerful. I want to thank you so much for being here and sharing this beautiful, beautiful, technique to everyone's here. And not only that, remember, we kept saying that just in case you forget or you're just listening in, take advantage of her free 90 minutes coaching session one-on-one with her. Try her out just to see how you like her. I mean, nobody does that. Give a free session to try out, sample.
Go to angelinafrost.com. Super
there
easy.
you go,
You'll see some
I also
there.
will write underneath the description. Go there too. You can do that.
Awesome.
Get the free ebook and also the EFT. If you didn't follow real well, and that can happen, you may get so relaxed and you're like, whoops, where was I? I missed that. Well, it's going to be in the link there. You can go there and get it for free because it works. I heard about this EFT for a long time, and I heard from so many people a positive outcome. But I'm really amazed to hear at the end that this is not it. There's a big one that you can use. And I'm like, what? Because the only thing I have heard of or I have done before in the past is what you just taught.
Oh.
But what you're going to have beyond that, you're going to come back again, Angelina Frost.
Yeah, it won't take as long for us to do it because that one is 1 point, but you get to do some exercises with your eyeballs and you get to do a whole bunch of stuff. And that is where it gets into the central nervous system where trauma lodges itself. So it's good. It's good
amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you, Angelina. Thank you for being here, sharing your wisdom, sharing your time. No, thank you. And guys, if you enjoyed this session, this video, please practice it. It works. Trust me, it works because it works with all I know about pressure point because I am a neuromuscular therapist. So I work with the pressure point on my clients. So what she does, she hits on those points to release all that tension, release the pain, she's right about that. So I'm like, wow, this is just simple. You can acupuncturists do that, the same point.
Yep.
Neuromuscular therapists like myself, we do that. We go to the point. Tapping, the same thing, just different tool to use. So if you like this session, please subscribe, click like, or share this video with anyone on your social media if you like. All right. And just look at her description, go there, and thank you so much, guys, for listening in. Until the next show. Bye, Angelina. Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody. Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody. Take care. Take it easy.
Bye.
Peace, love. Awesome.